from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, USDA releasing a fresh tally of world supplies, including drought-stricken Argentina. Tough trade talk between the U.S. and China softens in our I-80 planning tour.
I'm Betsy Gibbon. We're in eastern Nebraska along our I-80 planting tour, and we'll have an update on planting conditions ahead in the show.
In agribusiness, is the ag economy on the mend?
We could see another year where stocks are burdensome because we have way above trend yields, etc., so it's not guaranteed.
And a spring fling in the nation's capital.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. USDA's April WASDE report reflecting the serious drought problems plaguing Argentina's soybean crop. USDA lowering the estimate for Argentina's soybean crop by 7 million tons to 40 million due to reduced harvested areas and yield. Drought hit the region during the prime growing months of January through March. Meanwhile, lower soybean production is partially offset by higher production in Brazil. USDA expecting Brazilian farmers will produce a record amount of soybeans, 115 million tons. That's 2 million ton increase based on higher projected yields from Mato Grosso, Brazil's top soybean growing state. Just before releasing this latest South American production data, USDA confirming a shipment of 120,000 metric tons of U.S. soybeans are headed for Argentina, the world's third largest exporter, buying U.S. beans amid that stifling drought, making its biggest purchase in 20 years and the first sale to Argentina since the 2008-2009 season. Pro Farmer's Brian Grady helping us put it all in perspective.
On the soybean side of things, a dramatic 7 million metric ton cut to the Argentine soybean crop, way more than offset a 2 million metric ton increase to the Brazilian crop, and as a result we saw a big month-over-month decline in global soybean ending stocks. That will carry us moving forward as far as the Argentine crop continues to fall, I think, because it doesn't look like, based on what we've seen so far, that 40 million metric tons is going to be the low end for the estimate coming out of Argentina this year.
Domestically, U.S. ending stocks for corn come in at 2.1 billion bushels, up 55 million bushels from last month. The increase is based on USDA's expectation for reduced feed and residual use. The 2017-18 U.S. soybean ending stocks are estimated at 550 million bushels, down 5 million from last month. USDA expecting increased crush. Now, exports were also unchanged. The projected 2017-18 U.S. wheat ending stocks coming in at 30 million bushels, higher to 106 billion bushels. USDA also confirming a new purchase of new crop soybeans is headed to China, even as the two nations face off on trade and threaten tariffs. Chinese President Xi Jinping speaking at a business conference pledging to reduce tariffs on autos, strengthen protection of intellectual property, and mount a drive to boost imports as part of a, quote, new phase of opening up the country. President Xi making no direct mention of U.S. President Donald Trump or the current trade dispute. Global financial markets reacting positively to those statements. China reporting a global trade surplus of $423 billion last year. About two-thirds of that was with the United States. President Xi saying at the meeting that China does not seek a trade surplus, adding they have a genuine desire to increase imports. President Trump reacting to Xi Jinping's comments via Twitter, saying, quote, very thankful for President Xi of China's kind words on tariffs and automobile barriers, also his enlightenment on intellectual property and technology transfers. We will make great progress together. Meanwhile, President Trump canceling his trip to South America and the Summit of the Americas. There was talk that leaders in North America may announce a completed NAFTA renegotiation. Well, now the Mexican economy minister saying that's not going to be possible, but he gives an 80% chance that an agreement can be reached by the first week of May.
The I-80 Planting Tour, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
There's been little field work along the I-80 corridor in the Corn Belt. Monday's crop progress report showing Iowa and Illinois farmers had less than a day of suitable weather for field work last week, and that's continuing into this week. Nationally, 2% of corn got in the ground last week, which is on par with the 5-year average. In Nebraska, the state NASS report showing only oats getting planted last week. It's 18%, half of last year and well behind the 5-year average. In this week's stop along the I-80 planting tour, Betsy Gibbon talks to farmers in eastern Nebraska who are anxious to get going.
Planters are parked in eastern Nebraska and may sit there for a while.
I would say since 2012, nothing's went right in the spring for us in this area. I would call it the Mother's Day mayhem, where everybody planted something Mother's Day weekend. 2018
does not seem too much different for now as winter continues to linger. For Luke Loritzen and his dad Dale in Arlington, Nebraska.
Usually we get a little bit of a kind of an Indian spring type feel where we get some 60s and 70s. Haven't had that feel yet this year.
And Chris Cavan in Cedar Bluffs, Nebraska.
So we'd get out in the field, we'd get some stuff done, and then it'd be back to cold temperatures, frozen ground.
The time frame when these farmers want to plant in Nebraska is inching closer and closer, but they say there's still some field work to do this year. Cavan says Mother Nature has only given him a day and a half to till and apply ammonia. He needs nearly a week of nice weather to get it all done. A soil temperature of 30 degrees sure doesn't help.
Those two things that we'll need to finish up this spring.
Even though the same applies for Loritzen's area. He does not think farmers are going to change their acres due to a late spring, at least not yet.
If they've got inputs bought and they have a mindset that they're going to do it, they're going to do it.
I mean, everybody's got such big machinery. You plant it all in 4 days, you hit the wrong roulette number, and you're done. So I like to spread it out. Last 2 years, our later corn's been better than our early corn.
That's because these farmers say it pays to plant corn.
Basis is pretty good. We have two processors about 60 miles away, and they are usually one of the better bases in the state, if not in a tri-state area. And they can run in the single digits to the low teens usually all the time.
It ain't like the old days where my grandpa told me if you have a few hogs, you could always pay the mortgage. Well, that doesn't work anymore. You gotta be diversified. You gotta do other things. You know, you may have to spray for somebody. You may have to sell seed.
All while keeping an eye on the market.
You know, everybody said a good farmer that could do something with his hands was always a good farmer. Now it's who's the fastest to their phone to check the markets to make a decision.
Waiting for fields to be fit, hoping the final product will pay off later this season.
It's been late the last probably 4 years, and it's been trying. But in the end, we've had good crops out of it, which is surprising out of how spring went.
Reporting in eastern Nebraska, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Even in the snow, there are some brave souls working fields. Mike Hoffman has more in today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Yes, Kyle sent us this picture on Facebook from Maxburg, Iowa. He says fields may have snow cover, but he's getting some prep work done, putting down spring fertilizer. Kyle says temperatures are close to 50 and may get as high as 70 degrees by Friday before falling back to the freezing mark over the weekend. USDA says no corn has been planted in Iowa yet, which is typical, though, for this time of the year. And take a look at the wind speed forecast. You can see how it turns windy through the middle parts of the country and into the west as well. Tomorrow, we're going to see some pretty high winds from Texas all the way into the lower Great Lakes. And a fair amount of wind also out west, but watch what happens into the afternoon. It really becomes windy in the southwestern portions of the country and through the southern plains. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few minutes. First, here are some hometown temps.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
All right, when we come back, we'll look at market action and talk about finding strength in the farm economy. Plus, spring is showing all its glory in Washington, D.C. this week with the cherry blossoms. We'll take you there later on AgDay. In agribusiness markets reacting to Tuesday's USDA reports, let's get details now from our friends on the floor in Chicago.
The soybean market traded mostly higher here on Tuesday following a friendly report from USDA. The government told us that the Argentina soybean crop was a little bit smaller than what we had expected, and the world balance sheets tightened up a little bit more than we had expected. So a friendly tone here. It's really been some great drama here with this China story back and forth. You know, the initial announcement regarding tariffs on U.S. bean imports of U.S. beans was very bearish. It sent the market into a spiral lower. We very quickly recovered and almost posted some fresh highs here just today on Tuesday. The live cattle market traded both sides of unchanged here on Tuesday in a pretty indecisive trade, really. We've just been back and forth, not a whole lot of action. We did have a reversal last Wednesday. We went down, posted some fresh lows, came back, finished the day higher, but not a whole lot of excitement since then. I mean, we've seen wide daily trading ranges, but haven't really gone anywhere. The funds have been net sellers of cattle for 6 consecutive weeks and have been lightening up their once very hefty large net long position, and they've lightened that up quite a bit. So fund selling has been the name of the game here. Again, Joe Vick from CME Group here in Chicago.
Is the farm economy on the mend? That's a question economists are starting to ask. Tyne Morgan has more in today's analysis from the road.
Here now with Jim Mintert of Purdue University. Jim, you know, when we look at the past several years, we've really had 4 or 5 years of these economic headwinds for producers, some of them looking at below cost of production. But it seems like there's some optimism when you look at corn and when you look at soybeans. So do you think that we're maybe slowly climbing out of this recession?
Well, I think there's 2 things to think about there. One is that as you look at stocks to use ratios, which are a good measure of the tightness of supplies relative to demand, they're starting to tighten up, not only in the domestic market, but on a worldwide basis. So we're seeing stocks to use ratios for both corn and soybeans come down from their peaks, and the trend there is really important. The second thing is that took place last year, even though we had above trend yields. So usage has been very strong. If we see trend line yields this year, we're going to see those stocks to use ratios tighten even further. So that's a different environment than we were facing from about 2014 up through 16, 17. So from that standpoint, there's a possibility of seeing a positive impact on prices, particularly if we have any weather problems at all this summer.
So even trend line yields, you think there's room for higher prices?
Even trend line yields would cause those stocks to use ratios to tighten looking ahead to, say, the summer of 19.
For both corn and beans?
Yes.
So it does seem like we possibly could be climbing out of this recession.
Yeah, I think so. And it's not guaranteed, right? We could see another year where stocks are burdensome because we have way above trend yields, et cetera. So it's not guaranteed, but it's a different environment than what we were experiencing in that 2014 through about 2017 timeframe. So what that means is, from a management standpoint, to think about the possibility of that and whether or not you're positioned to potentially capture that. And that doesn't mean just delay any of your marketing decisions, but it does mean thinking about, well, if I price today, have I got a strategy to backstop that so that I might perhaps benefit even if prices continue to increase? And for a lot of cases, that might mean using options.
All right, good point. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. We need to take a quick break on Ag Day, and then we'll be back with more.
Ag Day, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
Welcome back to Ag Day, or meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the root zone moisture map. And Mike, we can see there are pockets out there that are dry, even through the middle of the country.
Right. I mean, we've been watching the Southwest, western Texas, western Oklahoma, but we can see pockets in Illinois, Missouri, northern Virginia, northern Minnesota, like you pointed out. Those are all places where we have to be at least a little bit concerned as we go forward into the growing season. You can also see some wet areas, southeast Texas, all the way into the Ohio River Valley, and also the northern plains, but especially back through Montana and into the northwest, even down into parts of California, a little bit on the wet side in the higher elevations because of all the snow they've been getting over the past few weeks. Kind of the end of winter turned kind of wet in that part of the country. Taking a look at today's weather map, the main storm system moving offshore of the southeast, so only South Florida. Maybe get a shower, thunder shower this morning, a little bit of snow through the northern Great Lakes, and another system kind of riding along this front across the northern plains will spread some rain and snow through those areas. Next storm system coming into the Pacific Northwest, pretty strong storm that will continue to move eastward as we head through the nighttime hours tonight, be into western Montana, northern Idaho. by first thing tomorrow morning. The eastern system, then we're talking into the southwestern Great Lakes, where the low pressure system will be. A lot of the moisture will be north of there. Otherwise, high pressure dominating the southeast to the southwest. Heading through the day tomorrow, then this storm system then comes out into the plain states, and so it will begin to spread some moisture farther east. It's also pumping up the warm air out ahead of it, and that snow and rain will move through New England and eastern Great Lakes as we head through late in the day tomorrow. Take a look at precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours. Not a lot. Hit and miss through the northwest, far northeast. Mainly Florida, though, has seen a fair amount of moisture and some heavier thunderstorms over the past 24 hours. Adding in the next 36 hours, then, we're not really going to add too much in Florida, but we're going to add some out west with some of the higher elevations, especially along the west coast, central California. Then a little bit of moisture spreading through the northern tier of states with those two systems moving from west to east. Snowfall past 24 hours, mainly northern portions of the Rockies and a few spots in New England. Then we add in the next 36 hours. We're going to keep adding some snow to these higher elevations, northern and western Rockies, and then we'll add some light snow across areas from North Dakota into northern Michigan. Taking a look at temperatures this afternoon, it is really starting to warm up for a change in the plain states. You can see that still chilly farther north. Low temperatures tonight going to stay mild in the southern plains, otherwise kind of chilly northern plains throughout the east coast, and the heat starts to expand into the Ohio River Valley as we head through tomorrow afternoon. Here's the jet stream, and you can see as we move through time, we're going to see a little cutoff storm system there as we head through the weekend, moving slowly, but the Arctic air is going to be kind of cut off a little bit. We'll have to watch a quick shot of cold air, though, as we head into next week for the Great Lakes and New England. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Las Cruces, New Mexico, lots of sunshine and hot today. High of 92. Dubuque, Iowa, milder with an afternoon shower in many areas, high of 59. And Anniston, Alabama, a good deal of sunshine, mild, high around 70.
When we come back, an update on citrus production. And is there something beyond organic? And while it may be difficult to see signs of spring in your fields, here's some proof. It's here, the annual Cherry Blossom Showcase in Washington, D.C. On the Packer TV, the latest WASDE report from USDA, also including production forecasts for oranges. The latest all-orange forecast rising to nearly 4 million tons. That's up slightly from last month, but down more than 20% from last season. Florida's all-orange forecast of 45 million boxes remains 35% lower than a year ago, while California production is 8% lower. Meanwhile, a new report from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine says finding a single breakthrough for managing citrus greening is unlikely. The report is the result of a request from the Citrus Research and Development Foundation. It's a $124 million state citrus industry initiative. The review says there are still significant barriers to solving the greening crisis, including the inability to culture the bacteria in the laboratory, the lack of advanced diagnostics for early disease detection, and the absence of standardized research methods. Is there a better level of organic? Some traditional organic farmers say the country's organic standards are being diluted. As a result, they've decided to create their own certification program and label. It would exclude hydroponic farming and large livestock farms that don't pasture their animals. Organizers hope to roll out a pilot program this summer. Still to come, one of the greatest natural shows on Earth is underway, but there's not a lot of time to take it in the country. Is next.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
While some of the Midwest is struggling to start its spring fling, Washington, D.C.'s tidal basin is awash in spring colors and visitors. Thousands of tourists are flocking to the tidal basin to catch a glimpse of the cherry blossom trees in their full glory. The Jefferson Memorial, the Martin Luther King Jr. National Memorial, the Franklin Roosevelt Memorials are all located there. The National Park Service says the trees reach peak on Thursday, which means 70% of the cherry tree blossoms are open. The cherry blossoms are a popular tourist attraction for locals and visitors alike.
It is unbelievable. I mean, it's just gorgeous. We came down the Potomac.
We walked down the Potomac from Lincoln Memorial, and it was just fantastic. Hardly anybody's over there.
The Park Service says blooms can remain on the trees for up to 2 weeks, depending on weather conditions, but the best viewing will likely last 4 to 7 days. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in Farm Country.